best of time. Remake Rewind.
Thank you for listening to another Remake Rewind. I'm Mike, as always. With me, I've got my buddy Alex. How are you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. You got your new computer. How exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's a big change. It's like moving into a new place.
Nice. It's like, was that a Christmas present to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could call it that. I've had an iMac since 2011.
Brag.
And I don't think that's bragging. I had it forever. Yeah, I had an 87 Pinto. I'm bragging. And
I
it
had an iMac before they were cool.
No, this is after, man. I did have an iMac before they were cool, though. I had one of those really old plastic ones forever ago. Anyway, the graphic card on that year of iMac is like notoriously bad, and I think it went out. It just died like 4 times that I had it over the decade, and it finally went out again, and it would be like $600 to replace it because they have to remove the entire screen, and like $600 for an obsolete computer. I couldn't even load Catalina, let alone Big Sur, the newest operating system.
Jesus.
Yeah, so it's like it's been obsolete forever, and like Final Cut Pro didn't work on it anymore. It was running super slow. It was just time for a new computer.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, but I say it wasn't a Christmas present because that happened in like July, and I waited until now to get the new one. And I'm glad I did, because I got this great M1 Mac Mini. If I had gotten it earlier, I wouldn't have gotten the M1.
You technically got one earlier, but then you returned it.
Yeah,
and then bought another, and then returned it, and then bought another, and then returned it, and bought another, and returned it. I don't think it was that many times, but
no, I think you said 6 times, and it was only 4. No, that's not true. I got a 2018 model Mac Mini a week before the new one came out. So luckily, I was able to return that and just wait a couple more weeks and get the newest one.
Well, I'm glad you got your new computer. You're gonna get some writing done, get some podcasting done,
get some videos done. I can do writing on the laptop.
Nice. Well, that's good. I'm happy for you, bud.
Yeah, man.
But the reason I asked if it was a Christmas present to yourself was because we're doing our Christmas special this year on A Christmas Carol. And there are a million versions of the Christmas Carol. So we just decided to do the ones that we thought would be the 2 most fun ones to watch.
And we were wrong. We were so wrong.
Really fun.
Yeah. We picked the best and the worst version of this story.
Yeah. So we did the Muppets, the Muppet Christmas Carol from 1992. And we did the 2009 Jim Carrey animated version. And that one was a chore. I'm just going to say it at the top. The Jim Carrey one was a chore.
That movie made me hate Christmas.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't seen either of these. Well, I'm sure I saw the Christmas Carol with the Muppets before as a little kid, but I didn't really remember it, and I never actually saw the Jim Carrey one. And I honestly don't think I can say honestly that I've seen an entire Christmas Carol movie all the way through for some reason. I think it's just one of those things where everybody knows the story, so I never really felt the need to watch a movie on the story that I knew.
Yeah. I think it's just a thing that's like, you don't see the new ones unless you are a kid or have kids.
Right.
So I think there are decades that go by where you don't watch any of them, and then you have kids and you're like, or you have a podcast and you're like, I have to go back and rewatch some of these ones that I didn't catch when I was little. Although the Muppets one, I don't remember seeing, but I feel like I must have. But like, I would have been 7 when it came out, so I would have been exactly 4. The right age to watch it. Both of us were the right age.
Yeah, I definitely remember this one to an extent, because I remember Kermit being Bob Cratchit, and I remember Michael Caine. Like, I remember friends of our podcast, these guys that have been on our podcast a bunch of times, the guys over at Get to the Podcast, they or now that's called Get to the Movies, but they did a Christmas special a couple years back, and they mistakenly said, I think they said Patrick Stewart was in this one, and I was like, no, it was Michael Caine. And then for their 100th episode, they invited me on, and I did like a little game show where I took different movies and said, was it Michael Caine or Patrick Stewart? So I like somewhat remembered this movie because I knew it was Michael Caine, but
I didn't know that Michael Caine was in it. So when his name popped up on the credits, I was like, oh shit, on the opening credits. And he looks so young.
He's a real actor.
He was fantastic in it.
He's great. I mean, he's fantastic. Even when he's in bad movies, like, he's always good.
Sure, but you also don't expect like a Muppet movie to, have a high bar for acting. That's not even a
That's
shot.
fair.
That's not even a shot against the Muppets. It's just like it's the Muppets.
Especially like
You don't
early on.
expect
So this was the
stage acting.
right. This was the fourth Muppet movie. So at this point, like the Muppets were pretty big. They knew generally they would do well. This one didn't do great in the box office. Like it was moderately successful, but it opened against Home Alone 2. So it was never going to be like a huge box office hit going up against that.
Donald Trump wins again.
Oh man. I'm ready to talk about this if you want to give me the elevator pitch.
Do we need to?
Yeah, you have to.
Okay. The elevator
I've
pitch.
got one for the second one. That's why I'm making you do this one.
All right. Elevator pitch for the Muppets. Hello, sir. Thank you for giving me the time here to talk to you in the elevator. You can't go anywhere if you choose not to. So
I've got another sexual harassment seminar I got to go down to, so make it fast.
Is that the running joke we're going with?
I guess so.
Well, maybe I should wait and pitch it to your successor next week. Listen.
No, I'm leading these, remember?
Yeah, but because you have experience doing them?
In leading sexual harassment seminars.
I think you're just very knowledgeable. I don't like this bit. This is not funny enough to justify the subject matter.
This will probably be
Listen,
the last time.
can I just pitch you this thing in the elevator?
Yeah, we got a couple more.
You're making me
floors.
very
Hurry up, bud.
uncomfortable, sir. Listen, you know the Charles Dickens classic Christmas Carol, the three ghosts, the guy, he's mean at the beginning, nice at the end. You like that, right? Also, the Muppets, they're huge right now. We own the rights to that. Why don't we do the Muppets in the Christmas Carol? That's it. That's a whole pitch.
How much
And
is it
also-
going to cost? Isn't Jim Henson
and also-
dead? Who's going to direct it?
Also, we're going to get Michael Caine to be in it, Sir Michael Caine.
Oh, shit. Okay,
Was he a
let's
sir
do
at
it.
this point?
Michael Caine's tight.
Is he a sir right now? If not, he's going to be soon. Michael Caine is tight. Jim Henson is dead, but his son is doing a good job running the Henson Studios over there.
Oh,
They're across.
Brian. I know Brian. He's a good kid.
Yeah, they're across the street from the strip club. You know what I'm talking about. Over there on La Brea.
They are. They're right down the street from Best Buy.
That's right, and Target. So we'll do that, and we've got a great new guy doing that Jim Henson voice for Kermit, and you're not even going to notice that it's not Jim Henson.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Got me sold at Michael Caine.
Here's your floor. Good luck with the seminar.
This movie was pretty fun.
It was delightful.
I normally will watch the older movie first. This is one of the rare times where I watched the newer one first, just because Katrina wanted to watch the Jim Carrey one. She thought it was going to be good. And she walked out like halfway through it. So this was the one that I watched second. So I was already kind of sour on the Christmas Carol by the time I started watching this one. But this one's fun. Like, it has like random jokes in there. Like, it's like opens up on them going through like this market, and there's like a pumpkin that gets stolen. Like, the pumpkin's alive, and it's like, help, I'm being stolen. And it's like classic Muppet jokes, and like the boomerang fish. You see just a guy throwing a fish puppet around. It was
just
fun.
Yeah, it was just fun. It was a nice time at the movies, and I think the way that we have to talk about these movies is the experience as a kid watching it, because they're geared towards kids. So the experience as a kid towards watching it, and then I think also being a parent, which neither one of us are, but hypothetically being a parent, unless you have a kid that I don't know about, and wanting to show that to your kids and enjoying it as a parent with your child too.
Right.
And this is something I would 100% love to watch with my kids.
Yeah,
and
I
if
would
I was a
absolutely
kid, I would have a
watch
good
this
time
one.
with it.
Yeah, I would actually absolutely watch this with my nieces and nephews if they celebrated Christmas.
And I think, part of this story, part of the Christmas Carol is how scary do you make the ghosts?
Right.
Right. And I think I like when movies, and I think the 70s and 80s did a really good job of this, but I like when movies for kids are still like kind of scary, but they understand how to scare kids without scarring them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or making
absolutely.
It's like building a roller coaster. Like,
We talked about it when we did The Witches.
yeah, exactly. You want to have all the dips and turns that a roller coaster has, but you don't ever actually want someone to feel like they're in danger, they're in peril. You just want to elicit a specific response from them. But if you just drop somebody off the side of the Empire State Building, they're going to get very scared, and that's not going to be an effective roller coaster.
Yeah, and this one's tricky because it is all Muppets, so I don't think you can really get that scary. And then everything, it's also a musical as well. So like the two of the ghosts, like the Marley is actually two people in this as opposed to just one, and it's the crotchety old men.
Yeah.
And they have a song and it's like I can't remember exactly how it was. It was like, give me a second.
It seems so obvious in retrospect that this would be a musical, by the way, but I didn't realize that going in. So when the first song started, I was like, oh, this is a musical. How delightful.
Where's my note on this? I thought I wrote oh, here it is. It's Marley and Marley. Whoa. Like that's
Whoa.
like that's like supposed to be the ghost, like the scariest of the ghosts. You're supposed to be like the ghost of Christmas to come or whatever they call it, or future Christmas. And then Marley, because Marley is supposed to be in chains and he's like a tortured soul and everything. So like this one, these ghosts aren't scary at all because they're Muppets. But
the second one was a little spooky.
The second one?
Yeah,
or the future one.
Oh, I'm sorry. The first one, I guess. It's after Marley. I keep on forgetting Marley's one of them.
Is weird. It's kind of like it doesn't fit the style of the rest of the Muppets. It's almost like a different Jim Henson one, like the Dark Crystal. Yeah,
I think that the way that they shot that is the same way they did the Poltergeist ghosts, where it's underwater.
Yep, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and then they overlay it, some old school Hollywood trickery.
Yeah.
So I think it can't look like a normal Muppet because foam probably doesn't really look good in water.
Probably not.
But I think they wanted to have that floating ghostly effect, which works. But
they did a really good job.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. Yeah. It just looks a little bit different. But yeah. That looks a little spooky.
Yeah.
What's the I remember the Ghost of Christmas Present is the haggard looking dude.
Yeah.
And then what's the third one again?
Ghost of Christmas to come.
But what does the Muppet look like?
It's like a Grim Reaper.
Right. That's kind of spooky.
That one was a little spooky.
I think that stuff is fun spooky for a kid. Like that's just scary enough as a kid, but not like terrifying.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mostly bring that up to contrast it with the ghosts in the new one, and we'll get to that.
I've got stuff to say about that one.
If it sounds like my case isn't strong enough, I'm holding my tongue a bit until we get to the new one.
I am definitely trying not to compare it because I want to have stuff to say about that one. Yeah. So we'll talk about it when we get there. But I guess we should just kind of go over the Muppets and like what roles they play, because they all the ones that we know and love show up. It's just a matter of like how much they play. And I wouldn't say that any of the Muppets we love play a large role in this. Like Kermit as Cratchit is the biggest, but Cratchit's really not that big of a character in pretty much any version of this or the book. Like I think
he had more to do in this one and then in the new one too.
He did.
Like they gave it a bigger role because it was Kermit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And it was a musical, so they had to get Kermit a musical with like the One More Sleep Till Christmas, which was a very nice and happy, loving song, and him ice skating or whatever it was that he was doing with the penguins.
There's a moment in that where you see Kermit's full body, and I thought that I recently rewatched the two new Muppets movies with Jason Segel and Muppets Most Wanted. And in Muppets Most Wanted, there's a full body Kermit scene, and it was really like off-putting to me. And I thought that they hadn't done that before. So when I watched this and you see Kermit's full body, I was like, oh fuck, they did this 30 years ago. That's crazy.
Almost 30 years prior. Yeah.
Yeah. It's still really weird.
You're not used to seeing it. Like you don't really see the legs of any Muppets other than like your Big Birds or the ones that are people size.
Yeah, or like it fucks with your brain to see them walking around.
Yeah,
without the aid of a person's hand, you know.
Yeah, it's super weird. And these Muppet movies are always interesting because they have people like Michael Caine and all, you know, Fred, his nephew, and then when they go into the past, you know, obviously his girlfriend, fiance, Belle, but then you have Muppets, and they never like address it at all. Like it's just understood that they exist in the world. So I always find that interesting. And then they have like little teeny tiny ones that are mice that are still mice, but they're sentient and live in the walls and talk about how like they're if it sucks being Bob Cratchit and he's super poor, think about being a mouse in this situation. Like, I think that's pretty funny. And like you also, the only time you really acknowledge that there's Muppets is when like humans exert their like dominance. Like there are a couple different points in this movie where Scrooge, played by Michael Caine, like picks up a Muppet and like throws them outside of doors. Like just literally picks them up, like something that you could not do to a person. He does because they're small and Muppets.
Yeah.
Is that white supremacy or human supremacy?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not too different from how the world is now. Like humans are just kind of exerting their will over animal kind. So
But
I don't mean to turn this into a vegan
kind of
rant, but it's true.
The list, you had Kermit as Bob Cratchit. Robin, the little frog, was Tiny Tim. Miss Piggy was Miss Cratchit. You had Fozzie. Fozzie was perfect. It was Fozziewig instead of Fezziwig. And then
Right.
that was pretty much it. Like you saw Animal. He was just some random party guest telling everyone to be quiet. You had Bunsen and Beaker, who were the charity workers trying to get money, which that comes into play in both movies where, you know, somebody asks for charity and he is really cold and he's like, no, I'm not going to give anything. Like they have the poorhouses and the jailhouses. And they're like, yeah, but some people would rather die than go there. Well, then we'll take care of the population surplus or whatever. And then other than that, you just kind of see all the Muppets in the background. So like the Muppets don't do much in this movie to drive the plot forward. It really is a Michael Caine and the three ghosts driving everything.
I like that. And you can contrast that to the new movie too, where like Jim Carrey, you know, it's about Ebenezer Scrooge and Jim Carrey is Scrooge, but it's there's so much for Jim Carrey to do in the new one that it's distracting.
It's just, and we'll get to the new one, but like
I like
a
that,
lot of the actors play multiple parts in the newer one, and it's
it's
weird.
We'll get to it, but my point is just I think it's cool that the gimmick of the movie isn't overtaking the story.
Right. Which is the point of the Christmas Carol. You're supposed to be talking about Ebenezer Scrooge and not get sidetracked by all that. So I'm just surprised that they didn't make the three ghosts Muppets. Did you see Katrina walk by?
Yeah.
That honestly surprised me. I honestly expected,
That's interesting.
I thought Miss Piggy was going to be one of the ghosts. I thought Fozzie was going to be one of the ghosts or something. Like you would.
But that is what you're talking about. Like that would make the Muppets more like the focus of the movie as opposed to just like the universe that they're telling this story in.
No, I was pleasantly surprised by that. I just assumed the Muppets would be these big characters and Tiny Tim would be inflated. Like
it's kind of like
Bob Cratchit would be inflated, and they weren't.
It's kind of like doing a story set in the Star Wars universe where some lone Mandalorian, soldier or whatever just goes on adventures and never has to deal with the main characters from the Star Wars saga.
But yeah, I don't know really what to talk about in this movie other than like it's a Christmas Carol. We all know the story.
What was your least favorite song?
My least favorite song? Honestly, I don't feel like any of the songs were that memorable. I remember One More Sleep Till Christmas, which I thought was a great song. And I liked the other song at the end that Ebenezer Scrooge sings where he's basically like, the whole city is my nieces and nephews. I thought that was great, but I honestly can't remember any of the other musical numbers in this.
I just wrote down that I didn't like the Hagrid song, the Christmas Present.
Christmas Present.
Yeah,
I honestly don't even remember it. And to be perfectly honest, I kind of spaced out on this movie because like I said at the beginning, I did not like the Jim Carrey one, and I watched that first, and I was kind of like over watching A Christmas Carol before I even got into this one, so I came in and out of it.
That's funny because I watched this one first, and I spaced out during the Carrey one because in the first 2 minutes I was just like, oh, this is gonna be rough.
Yeah, I told you it was gonna be rough.
I know, you were right.
Yeah. But
I wish that we both could have been like Katrina and just turned it off or walked away. What character was it? Never mind. It's not funny enough. Not worth mentioning. This movie
didn't it talk about where they did make a major change with the major character?
What's that?
Gonzo as Charles Dickens and also the narrator.
I like that.
And then having Rizzo as himself.
Yeah, that was funny. It's funny that one of them is in character, and they like reference it too.
I think my favorite line
Rizzo's
in the whole movie
you're not
was,
Charles Dickens. He's old.
They go back, and Charles Dickens as Gonzo like throws ropes around been around Ebenezer Scrooge so he can travel with the ghost and him. And apparently that works with time travel. Like you can just loop around somebody and travel through time with them. But when we see Ebenezer as a child and he's in school and they're talking, he goes, I was always a little lonely, but being lonely on Christmas allowed me to get more schoolwork done. And Rizzo's like, I don't get that. And Gonzo, as Charles Dickens, is like, what do you mean? You've never been lonely as a child? And he goes, I'm a rat. I have 1,274 brothers. And then Gonzo just like looks right down the barrel and is like, yeah, I guess rats wouldn't understand that kind of thing.
See, that's funny to me. That feels like a play. It feels like a stage play.
Yeah.
And you've got these narrators that just yeah, exactly. They're with you and they're just kind of doing the side to the audience. And it's fun and it's funny and it works.
That was probably my favorite part was Gonzo. Same thing at the beginning when he introduces himself. Rizzo's like, you're not Charles Dickens. He goes, yes, I am. I know the story of A Christmas Carol like the back of my hand. Well, tell me about it. And he goes, I've got a mole on my thumb and I've got a little scar on my wrist from a bicycle accident. He was like, no, the Christmas Carol. I did laugh at that. I liked Gonzo as kind of our point of view character.
Yeah, me too. That's good. I thought this movie was beautifully shot and lit, especially the Muppets. I think so too. It looks like it was shot yesterday.
Yeah, it looks great. Like obviously, like however they converted it to digital for Disney Plus.
Yeah,
looks really good.
I think the Muppets actually look better than the humans.
Yeah, I think so.
As far as cinematography,
the only thing I thought that was like kind of weird in this was when they're doing the past and we see him meet Belle at the ball and he's like falling in love, and then we jump forward in the future a little bit, but it's still the past. He is talking to Belle and she's like, hey, like, when are we going to get married? And he's like, well, I haven't made enough money yet. And she's like, well, you said as soon as you became a partner, we were going to get married and you didn't. And he's like, well, I'm doing this for you. And she's like, well, you used to love me. And then just like walks away, but she's like smiling the whole time. And he's like, old Ebenezer Scrooge is like, it's too painful. I can't watch. Take me home. Leave me be. And like, I didn't really feel like that was a breakup. Like she was way too peppy and happy to be like breaking up with Ebenezer for it to feel like there was any emotional weight to it.
Yeah, that might be. I think there were two moments in the new one that sort of worked for me, and their depiction of that scene was pretty okay. I
think I agree.
And I'll save the other one for when we get to it.
For this one,
the main thing I didn't like about this movie that stuck out to me was the beginning where it felt like every shot of Scrooge for like two scenes was an extreme close-up. Did you notice that?
And you also didn't see him for a while too. Like as he's like they're doing the musical number talking about how mean he is. It's like always in shadows, you don't see him, and then when you finally see him, it was extreme close-ups, like you just pointed out. It was a little awkward until he kicked everybody out.
His nephew too was also an extreme close-up. Like there was just parts of the movie where they were just like, we're just on his face, his entire face, for minutes at a time. It was really weird.
Yeah,
it made me wonder if like Michael Caine was pregnant in that shot, and they just didn't want to show his.
I mean, to be fair, it was Brian Henson's first movie. Like Michael Caine apparently didn't know that this was the first movie that this guy directed, and found out halfway through and was really impressed.
That's cool.
Yeah. The other thing I really liked before, like I don't really have much to say about this, so I'm just saying things I liked, was as we're getting to learn about Ebenezer Scrooge being a Scrooge, you have Bob Cratchit, and then you have all these different rats that are employees, and they're kind of like egging on Kermit as Bob Cratchit to like ask for time off for Christmas and ask for, you know, all these different things. And Ebenezer's like, you know, the unemployment line could do this. And the mice get back to work and they're like, oh, can we turn on the heat? And he's like, you can go turn on the heat in the unemployment line. And then all of a sudden they appear in like hula skirts and Hawaiian shirts. And they're like, oh no, it's nice and warm here. Yeah. Like everything just kind of like breaking the timeline a little bit, but it's fun. Like I had fun with this movie.
Yeah, I had a good time. If I had Rugrats, I would show it to them.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't have anything else to talk about this movie. It's a perfectly serviceable Christmas film. It's fun to watch. It's not super long. If you want to watch a fun version of A Christmas Carol, I think this is the way to do it.
I agree. It's given the Remake Rewind seal of approval.
Yep.
The holiday seal of approval.
You have anything anything else before we move on?
No, that's that. I went through all my notes.
You've been a very good boy this year.
So what have you been up to, bud?
I watched the Green Day American Idiot making of documentary yesterday.
Ah,
That was
is it
okay.
about the musical or the album?
The album.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you're a Green Day fan or how many Green Day fans we have, what that Venn diagram looks like, but I've loved Green Day since I guess Nimrod came out. Which I know it's a little late. I didn't get into it when Dookie was released. I was 9. I'm sorry. No, Green Day's been like one of my favorite bands forever, and somehow I had never seen this, so this is pretty cool. I thought one of the interesting takeaways from it was that they still looked like the sort of elder punks that they were in 1998, 99, 2000, where they just like look like normal guys, you know? Looks like
Right.
Giovanni Ribisi in Suburbia. And it's just so shocking because like I think immediately after American Idiot came out, it's just like eyeliner and like the purposefully messy hair.
Yeah.
And clothes.
Almost overproduced.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a different era of Green Day. I love that record, but their look changed severely, and they're already millionaires at that point, you know?
Right.
But it was cool to
like.
it was cool to see them as young men.
I saw a performance that they did while they were still in high school at their high school, and they fucking like rocked. Like you can look it up on YouTube. There's a video of them playing, and they fucking shred as like kids.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's why they rose to prominence in the Bay Area and the East Bay scene before Dookie came out. Like they just fucking put their nose to the grindstone, and they're playing 3 chords or whatever, but they're doing it so fucking well. They're so on point, and Trey Cool is such a good drummer.
Yeah, he is.
That you can't like watch that and deny that they're incredible musicians.
Nice.
Like Mike Dirnt as a bass player, fuck man, one of my favorite bass players.
Where did you watch this? What platform is it on? I might have to check it out.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. What else? I rewatched Just Friends, another one of my favorite Christmas movies.
With Ryan Reynolds.
Hell yeah.
Is that Amy Smart in it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love that movie. Office Christmas Party, Batman Forever, which is the worst thing ever. The second worst thing ever. I watched that Travis Scott documentary.
Oh, okay.
Look, Mom, I Can Fly, which is like pretty good. And there's like people like moshing and like moshing and like stage diving and shit. And it seems like it would be really fun to go one of his concerts. And I started checking out some of his music.
I'm not familiar with his music at all.
He's like the most popular musician in the world right now, but we're old.
Yeah, apparently.
So,
but I
we
could
don't
not
know.
name a single song of his.
No. So he did a song for Tenet too.
Ah.
Yeah, he made the song that plays over the closing credits of Tenet, which is so weird to have a Christopher Nolan movie that ends with like a hip hop song.
Oh yeah, I
know
do
what I mean?
remember seeing that and the credits being a little confused. I'm like, this doesn't fit
But you know
with
what?
anything.
That's a fucking fantastic song. I like that song a lot.
Nice.
I watched Hotel Artemis for the first time. That was good.
I've wanted to watch that for years, and it only played here in Los Angeles for a week, so I didn't get to see it in theaters. It's on Amazon. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it.
It is so extremely my shit, and it's so weird that I never watched it. But I finally got to it, and I really enjoyed it. And I watched Tenet, finally.
Nice.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about it.
Yeah, I know. We'll save that for
That could be
just a regular conversation between friends.
That could be a bonus episode, actually. We
We
just
could
do
do
it.
that if you want.
We could just like do a Tenet talk through, all
Yeah, we
spoilers.
could totally do that. I'm gonna watch it again. I haven't had a chance
I
to
do
watch
too.
it since it came out on Blu-ray, so
I-
I'm hoping to watch it in the next couple of days.
I want to say this before I watch it again, just because I feel like my mind might change. So I want to capture this moment. I don't know that I loved it. I'm pretty sure I did, but sometimes sometimes I think about it. I'm like, I don't know if that was actually good.
The second time, so I loved it the first time. Now, granted, when I watched it in like late August or
Yeah, I remember.
September, and I drove almost 2 hours to go to Orange County to watch it, and there was nobody in the theater. It was like 6 people total, so we felt good about it. And then I watched it again on the drive-in, and the first time I really liked it, but I was really emotional because like that's what I like to do is go to the movies. Like I would go to the movies at least once a week.
Yeah,
And so not being able to do that and then finally going to the theaters to see a Christopher Nolan film was a little overwhelming. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of got emotional and almost teared up when I was watching it when the opening credits started. The second time, once I understood the movie a little bit more, like things were clicking into place. I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. Okay, I get that. And the second time, fucking loved it even more. So,
All right, well, I'm excited to watch it a second time, and then we can do we'll do a full talk through spoiler heavy episode.
Cool. So I don't know how I had this much time to watch and do as much as I did, but I got through a bunch of stuff. So I was just playing around with PlayStation. I don't remember what it's called, but you can do PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5. You can remote play it on your computer.
Yeah, I've done
I was
that.
setting up my office and was kind of tinkering around with it, and it popped up, and it turned out I was like 87% done with all achievements. Like I'd beaten the game 100% already.
Which game?
Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Oh, I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah, so I'd already beaten the game. I'd already actually beaten it 100% story-wise and got all the side quests. But then I realized I only had like 4 achievements to do to get all the achievements, which I'd never done before. So I was like, and then I looked at them and they weren't very hard. So I for the first time ever, I got 100% done.
Wow.
On the story and trophies on a game. So I did that over the last couple of weeks on Miles
That's
Morales.
awesome.
I only had to put like 2 hours in to do it.
And you're playing on a 5, right?
I was playing on PlayStation 4.
Okay. But you got a 5, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I want to play Miles Morales. I've only played the first one. I haven't played Miles
It's
Morales
fun.
yet.
I talked at length about it like 3 or 4 episodes back.
I know that you played it. I couldn't remember if you got a 5 or not.
Yeah, no, just the PlayStation 4. So I did that.
Did you
a couple
play
things that I
Cyberpunk yet?
watched that are fantastic. I watched this documentary on Netflix called My Octopus Teacher. And it's about this guy who was he made documentaries before as like a cameraman, and he decided he hated making movies and he needed to get away from it. So he starts like free diving near this like reef out in like, I don't remember exactly where he is, but it's like Nordic area. So he's like out where it's super cold, and he starts going through like this kelp forest, and he sees this octopus, and it's doing something he didn't know they can do. So he goes and visits it and finds it again. And so he just decides that for as long as he can, he's going to swim down there and find this octopus every single day. And he does it for almost a year. And he develops a friendship. Like the octopus starts to realize who he is, starts to like be affectionate and like hug him. And it's fucking beautiful, this man like interacting with nature. And like, I'm not gonna lie, I fucking bawled like a baby at the end of it. Fucking beautiful documentary. I would recommend it to anybody. It's on Netflix. It's insane. Like these things that, like, I know a lot about octopi. Like Katrina and I think they're aliens and they're way too smart to be.
You're a
related to
cephalophiliac.
snails. What was that?
You're a cephalophiliac.
No. Gross. But it's
No, it just means that you
there are
love them,
things-
not that you want to fuck them.
Yeah, but the things that this octopus did, I didn't know that they could do these things, and it's just fucking incredible. So check that out.
Cool.
I finally, for whatever reason, just over the last like 2 years, musicals clicked with me. I used to hate musicals, and something clicked about 2 years ago when Greatest Showman came out, and all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? Musicals aren't terrible. So I've been going back and trying to watch ones that I didn't necessarily like before. So we rewatched Chicago, and it's fun. It's good. Like,
Did you watch Hamilton on Disney?
yeah, loved it.
Nice.
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah, Hamilton's great.
We've been listening to it for pretty much since it dropped on Disney Plus. We still listen to it pretty regularly, the music format. So that's
yeah.
great. Christmas movie, we had to get one in during this we're trying to watch at least a few every week, but we watched The Holiday last night.
That's a Jack Black one, right?
Yeah. Of course we watched Little Baby Grogu in the Mandalorian finale.
We should talk about that too. I don't know if, not for this episode, I guess, but
The Island, I watched that. We decided to
with Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson, underrated Michael Bay movie. Like, it bombed. I worked at the movie theater when it came out, and I had no idea what it was. Like, they didn't advertise that movie at all.
Yeah, I wish that Michael Bay would focus more on movies like that and Pain and Gain rather than Transformers 8.
Yeah, I agree. Pain and Gain's fun. It's way better than it should be.
Yeah,
it works.
Agreed.
Yeah. I did some actual reading this week.
Wow.
So this the series of books that I like. David Wong is the pseudonym of one of the guys over from Cracked. So he wrote John Dies at the End, and he's done 3 of those books. But he has another series called the Zoe Ash series, and it's called the first one's called Fancy Suits and Futuristic Weapons, and then just a few weeks ago, a sequel came out called Zoe Punches the Future in the Dick. And so I reread the first one, and then I read the new one, and then I started reading Dune again. So I'm like halfway through Dune, the first one. And the other thing, I got one of my friends is a producer for Warner Brothers for games, and she was able to get me an alpha code for Back for Blood, which is essentially Left 4 Dead 3. They just can't call it that because they're no longer part of Valve. Wow. And it's fucking rad. Sick. It's really great.
I like Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, it's super good. Oh, Guns Akimbo with Daniel Radcliffe. Watch that.
Oh yeah, the problematic.
It's fucking weird, dude. Was that?
Do you know the story about that?
About how it got made, or
it's how do I say it? Its release. The director said some shit that fucked up. Its release.
No, I have no idea.
We don't. I'll let you look it up. We don't have to get into it here. I don't really care.
Yeah, I watched it. I don't know if it's good or bad or what, but it was a movie, and it was it did some things. There were parts of it that were fun and parts of it that were really bad, but
I like when actors who got famous doing like really mainstream roles make weird choices.
Yeah, it's
so
definitely
I like,
a weird choice.
I don't care how bad it is. I like when Pattinson does weird shit, even though Good Time was not a good movie. I like that Daniel Radcliffe is doing Guns Akimbo. I like Elijah Wood doing all the weird horror stuff that he does.
But yeah, it was definitely. I don't know how to describe it. Like, I watched it and I was fixated on that movie the entire time. But I wouldn't say it was good, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was enjoyable. But it was hard to stop. Like, I couldn't stop watching it. So take that for what you will. I can't honestly say I recommend it, but if you want to watch something weird, it's definitely weird.
Speaking of not being able to recommend things, did you play Cyberpunk at all?
No, I knew I wasn't going to have time, and I figured I would wait for a little bit.
Now you're glad you did.
And I thought there might be issues, and I was right.
What made you think that there would be issues?
So I knew just some of the comments that they said on Twitter and like how often they were delaying it. And then it eventually got to the point where there were whispers that they didn't want to release it, but the shareholders basically said they had to.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, I'm going to wait until and with how ambitious the game was, I knew there were going to be issues at the beginning and there were going to be day one patches. And I didn't have, and even though it's free to upgrade, which is what I'm going to do with the Miles Morales when I get a PlayStation 5 someday, I'll do the free upgrade to the PlayStation 5.
Wait, you don't have a PlayStation 5?
No, I don't.
That's a joke.
But with Cyberpunk, I was like, I can do that. But I just had a feeling, and it's also such a huge, massive open world game, and apparently there's hundreds of hours of side quests. I'm like, I knew I wasn't gonna have time to get into that. Yeah. So I was like, I'll wait.
Yeah, I've been playing it, and my experience hasn't been as negative as some people's, but it crashes every time I play it, at least once.
That sucks.
And there's like glitchy shit that doesn't always break the game, but is distracting and like not what you expect from a AAA game. So
yeah, that's
a little bit of a bummer. The funny thing is, I'm so into it right now that I don't want to wait for the patches. I think there's supposed to be one today, the 21st.
Yeah, they said there was going to be one earlier this week.
But part of me is like, hey, I just started it. I could just not play for a couple weeks. I don't need to sink hours of my time into this game right now. You know, there's other stuff I could do. But it's also like still pretty immersive and pretty fun. So it's hard to to actually stop once you get into it. I played
about 4 hours of the alpha for Left 4 Dead or Back 4 Blood.
Yeah.
And
is it Back 4 Blood with the 4?
Yeah, with the 4. Like the same 4 as Left 4 Dead.
Yeah,
like
cool.
The gameplay is pretty much the same. It's Left 4 Dead 3 in all but name. But I played an alpha, which they expect it to be broken. They want you to find it. They were inviting us like to certain times to do stress tests. Yeah. And in the 4 hours I played it, I encountered one bug.
That's awesome.
And hearing about Cyberpunk having all of them, I was like, well, that's disappointing. But I'll get it eventually.
Yeah, last year when I was playing a lot of PUBG, they do the test server for like new maps and stuff, which is like literally a completely different game and download from the PUBG app on your computer or your PlayStation. And same shit, like it's there to be stress tested so that they can collect information and have you report back to them on the Reddit that the PUBG developers follow and stuff, and way less bugs than Cyberpunk.
That's crazy.
Also not a
That's
AAA
really
game.
disappointing.
Yeah, and another thing is that I feel like I'm not read up on the issues that CD Projekt Red has had with as a studio with their employees and stuff, so I don't want to sound like I know what I'm talking about with that or speak to it necessarily, but it is disappointing that all these people that are playing the game are rightfully pissed off, but they're going to be directing it towards the game developers, and I don't think it's their fault from what I understand. Like they wanted to delay the game and it wasn't ready to go.
The one thing I heard against the game developers is apparently the shareholders are suing CD Projekt Red because they apparently misled them on the differences of the hardware between the different generations, and they're like, there's going to be virtually no difference besides slight graphical changes between the PlayStation 5 and the current gen, and that clearly isn't the case, but that could be the shareholders just being dickheads. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not impressive close up. Like the hair and the skin don't look super sick. There's a lot in the world that's like jam packed and that looks cool, but when you are close to somebody, Keanu or whatever, it doesn't look great. Yeah,
a lot of people are like, would you play it on a PC? Like people can just drop $2,000 on a gaming PC, and it's like, dude, this game was in development for 9 years. It was in development before the PlayStation 4 was a thing. Like it's not unreasonable for people to expect it to work on the current gen stuff if it was in development before the PlayStation 4 even launched. So like I think it's absurd for people to be like, why are you upset playing it on a PlayStation 4?
Yeah. So I feel bad not for the higher ups at CD Projekt Red, because I'm sure that a lot of that fault is on their shoulders, and apparently they've not treated their employees very well. But I feel bad for the people that spent years toiling on programming this game and trying to fulfill this ambitious idea, and just like getting shit on Twitter when they had no say in it.
All right. Well, I guess we should get into the what we've been delaying, trying to avoid talking about, the Jim Carrey one.
No.
All right. What was your executive name again?
The podcast is over, friends. Thanks for listening.
What was your executive name? You remember?
I didn't have a name, I don't think. Oh, I had a name like 2 weeks ago.
It was like Mr. Tim's or something, like some shit like that.
No, let's do a new one. How about Ebenezer Movie.
Ebenezer Movie. Mr. E-Movie. I've got a great idea for a movie for you. And,
all right. I'm trapped in this box with you, so.
Did you see the Polar Express a few years back? I know you've got kids.
No, I avoided it. It looked terrible.
Well, it made, in 2005 dollars, it made $337 million.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. And it had Robert Zemeckis, Bobby Z.
He was in it? He acted in it? Isn't he a director?
No, he was the director. He wrote and directed it. And
that makes sense.
He wants to do it again, but he wants to bring...
With Tom Hanks?
Christmas. No, he actually...
Oh, Christmas Carol with Tom Hanks. That's a great idea.
It would be a great idea, but he actually has this great idea to bring Jim Carrey in. And he has a time travel franchise. Like, he knows how to do time travel movies. So I think he'd be perfect for this. And he hasn't made a movie with us at Disney. We should have made you Bob Iger.
Bob Ebenezer.
But he hasn't done anything with Disney since Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and he's been wanting to work with us again. So, man, that last movie made a fuck ton of money. Maybe we should let him make a Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey.
Well, Jim Carrey does make a lot of money.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
It's going to be good, though, right?
Fast forward a few years later.
I've got an idea to save some money. We're going to have Jim Carrey play 7 characters.
So he played a bunch of characters. You had
I fucking hated that. I understand why they had Jim Carrey be the three ghosts, because it's like they're different facets of Ebenezer or whatever.
Sure.
It was super distracting, and it added nothing to it.
The voices he did because they all sounded like him.
Yeah,
which is an issue.
And they all look like him.
Yeah. Well, and what's weird is, so even old Ebenezer Scrooge looked like Jim Carrey, and I was reading some of the trivia and they were saying that it wasn't designed to look like him. In fact, it was supposed to be, I guess in Polar Express, there's a marionette of Scrooge, and it was supposed to be a reproduction of that. But like it
looks
like
exactly like him. It looks like what Jim Carrey is going to look like when he is that age.
But what's weird is when they go into the past Ebenezer doesn't look like Jim Carrey, which was super weird.
Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah. But yeah,
jumping ahead.
You also had Gary Oldman, who played Marley. He played Bob Cratchit. He's also credited as Tiny Tim, which is weird.
Total waste of Gary Oldman.
Carrie Elways played a portly gentleman. Dick Wilkins was just a business person. The Mad Hatter, Guest 2 and Business 2. That was weird. Robin Wright, Penn. She was Penn at this point, but now she's just Robin Wright. She played Fan and Belle. Bob Hoskins was Fezziwig, and they were all wasted on this movie.
Yeah. Robin Wright, I think, brought the stuff that I liked about that scene, because we mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gary Oldman is a waste. Carrie Elways is a waste. Bob Hoskins, I think, maybe.
Yeah, he was Fezziwig.
Yeah, I mean he's great, but like that feels like a role that he would do, so that doesn't feel like a total waste. I mean, I'm just saying he's not a leading man.
Yeah, this movie made money though, so
that doesn't surprise me.
To kind of compare, so Polar Express,
do you know the budget?
$165
Okay.
$165 million budget, and it grossed $314 million worldwide. Polar Express did not fucking die. That was at my theater for 6 months.
Okay.
But no, back then, this wasn't back when they were spending the same budget on advertising as they were for the movie itself. And they weren't opening as many movies back to back to back at that point. It wasn't really until like 2010 where they were really just like, we're opening 5 movies every weekend. And you had to start getting, so like, it was considered a hit, Polar Express, like a huge, huge hit. This one had a bigger budget of $200 million, grossed $325 million. So it actually made more than Polar Express, but cost more.
And it also
a hit.
Came out later though, so
Yeah,
everything that you're talking about, spending less on ads and stuff, doesn't apply as much to this movie.
It still does. This is still pre-YouTube and pre-online video, really.
Do you think that I'd have to read up on that, but I feel like spending money on YouTube advertising would be less expensive than printing something and putting it on the side of a bus.
I mean, it depends. It really depends on who you're doing it on, what service, if you're putting on individual people's channels. But and you also have to keep in mind, this is Disney, so they own ABC, so it doesn't really cost them anything at this point to advertise. They're just not getting ad revenue if they're advertising during their time slots. So this was still considered a hit, so much that they made a point to hold the delay getting the DVD out, so that way they can get wait until they can do 3D Blu-ray. And this and Alice in Wonderland were the first 3D Disney movies released.
Right. That was like a 3-year period where
everything
was 3D, and it was making a lot of money too. There's like a lot of extra money to be made by making something 3D.
Yep. So,
which is not really true anymore.
But yeah, that's pretty much all the facts I have about this movie, just right off the top.
This was.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, this was just a chore to watch, man. Like right off the bat, this movie is fucking ugly. I hate what they were doing.
It's off-putting.
The animation, it's so off-putting. Like it's uncanny valley, right? Like it's too realistic. And I had the same feeling about Polar Express, which I guess people like, but it's like, it hurts my eyes to watch. It looks too realistic. And then there are characters that are meant to be unrealistic, but everything is unrealistic because it's all animation. And it's just like, it hurts my head to look at it.
But then you also like basically superimpose people we like Jim Carrey onto these characters, so that was often like, well, that's not Jim Carrey. And then same thing, like Bob Cratchit was Gary Oldman, and they put Gary Oldman's face on like a body that was like a hobbit. and off-putting.
He was so
It was
short.
super weird. And like tonally, this movie made no sense. So the very beginning of this movie starts with like a storybook opening, and it has this like really gross drawing of a dead man that's supposed to be Marley. And like you see him, and he's all like decaying and has the coin on its eyes. And we see how despicable Scrooge is because he takes the gold coins off his friend's dead body. And
So,
like,
let's
it's
pause.
off-putting.
Let's pause right there. Already the whole was it like 5 minutes before the title card at the beginning?
Yeah,
There's like a whole prelude where I think the only thing that we're supposed to learn is that Ebenezer Scrooge is a crusty, unmarried little bitch, right? Like he's a bad guy. We're just supposed to hate him. It takes so long, and that was communicated. Yeah, and like all they needed to do was have him take the pennies off of the or the shillings or whatever off the eyes of his friend before
or
they bury him.
refuse to pay for the funeral or what? Any one
That's
of those
it.
things.
30 seconds. I don't need any more than that. And they dragged it out so long to the point where I was like, fuck this guy. Like, I don't even care about him getting redeemed, you know?
Right.
Like he's such a bad guy, and he's so despicable. He's so deplorable. And oh fuck, you said something else that I had a comment on and I lost my train of thought.
I was just saying that like tonally it didn't make sense and was inconsistent because it had this like storybook opening.
Oh, this is the other thing I was going to say. On top of these, like what we're talking about, the animation being like heightened reality or whatever, the way that it looks, the ghosts and like the dead body, Marley's dead body are even more off-putting on top of that.
Yeah, I agree. Like I don't feel like this is a kids movie.
Exactly. They're like extra scary for kids.
I don't feel like it's a kids movie. Like Katrina was watching this about halfway through with me, and then she walked away and she's like, I wouldn't watch this with kids.
No, hell no.
It's creepy.
It's super creepy.
Imagine watching it in 3D. Ugh.
Yeah. The characters are already off-putting. Just like neutral, the neutral characters just existing are super off-putting. And then the ghosts are like extra scary. And there's like a dead body in the opening.
Yeah, there's the opening dead body in the opening. When you see Marley, he's like rotting and has the chains, and he's like
his jaw falls off.
Yeah,
his jaw falls
off. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
and
it's straight. It's the most brutal scene from Mad Max, and it's in like the first 10 minutes of this children's movie.
And then you have God, the ghost of Christmas Past was super creepy. It was supposed to be like, it was much smaller than the rest of the ghosts. It's just like this white billowy fabric, and then it's supposed to be like a flame head, and then you just see like normal Jim Carrey's face, like poorly CGI'd onto a flame.
And he's doing like a creepy little kid voice.
Yeah, it's almost like he's doing like Mr. Burns in that episode where he's an alien in The Simpsons.
Yeah,
he's like doing like an ethereal voice, and it just doesn't work.
No, that was my least favorite ghost, I think. It actually pissed me off watching it.
Hagrid ghost.
Yeah. I call that young Santa.
That works. I could see that.
This is like a Santa that fucks. This isn't your grandma's Santa.
It's like Kurt Russell when he was younger.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
But I do agree with you. That scene felt more real when he loses his fiance.
Yeah.
Like she's like, you used to love me, but you chose money over. Like she flat out was like, I know that you used to love me, but if given the choice to marry me or make money, you would pick money, and I'm out.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah, she was right, and that was fine. And then the part when you go a Ghost of Future to Come or Christmas to Come or whatever the future ghost is called, like that shit was kind of disturbing too. When he is seeing like his old employees going through his shit and selling his stuff to a fence, and like they're all like grotesque people. It's super weird. Like I don't understand why like these employees were just like made to look subhuman.
Because they're poor, and this movie hates poor people.
Yeah, dude, I did not like this movie. I did not care for it.
Yeah, Robert Zemeckis made a lot of weird choices, and I kind of knew what I was in for when they put his title card up on screen like 5 minutes into the movie. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We get this like bird's eye view of London or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're like zooming through the clouds and just like looking at all the peasants and stuff in the town on Christmas, and it's all snowy and stuff. And it's this like amazing angle and shot that wouldn't happen without animation, you know?
Right.
Even if it's meant to be photorealistic, like it's not your brain is like, oh, this is not a real shot, you know?
Yeah.
Like cameras don't do this. It's not physically possible. And you're like traveling through the center of wreaths and shit. Anyway, that shot is like, I think it was an unbroken, just one shot. And it ends on a downward facing view of Scrooge walking into his door. And there's like a line in the middle of the screen. You can't really tell what it is. And then the camera sort of like rotates down and you realize that it's the bar hanging off of the building that says like Scrooge and Marley, like his business.
Right.
But they decided to put the title card. So let me back up. When someone's making a movie, they choose where to put their title cards very specifically. Either because it has something to do with the movie or it's like a little in joke or something. And sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's on a black screen. But like if you see written and directed by Robert Zemeckis or Christopher Nolan or whatever, Nolan is an example of somebody who doesn't do this, but it's put over a shot that the director wants to have their name over. You know,
right.
Like, the Top Gun one is actually a great example. Tony Scott put his name over the best shot in that opening montage. Because that's what you do. You're the director. That's your little moment of prestige, right? Yeah. So I'm watching this, and it says written or directed by Robert Zemeckis, and it's just this downward shot with a bar in the middle of the screen, and it means nothing. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's what you put your title card. That's what you put your name on.
You decided to put it just before the action starts, where it's not really relevant.
There's nothing happening on screen that's interesting.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, well, you're not making good choices in this movie, so here we go.
Yeah, but then at the end of the movie, so like I brought up how it started with like a storybook, like opening, and then we get that shot that you talked about, like the weird cityscape, and then it ends with the narration from Bob Cratchit talking about how great Ebenezer was.
So yeah, he like at no point in this movie did I feel like I was being like there was a narrator, someone was telling me a story. I guess in the beginning they open up a book, but it's never referenced again until the end.
No.
And then all of a sudden Bob Cratchit looks down the barrel and he's like, Ebenezer was a wonderful man, and Tiny Tim treated him as a second father, and blah, blah. And I was like, why are you talking to me through the camera? This is again so off-putting.
Yeah, it made no sense. Like
it was like the end of Cats. Do you remember that? God. When what's her face Dame
when Judi Dench is explaining everything?
Yeah, and it just goes on for 10 minutes. That's how I felt.
Jellicle.
Another thing that was so off-putting about this movie was the lack of like room tone. It felt like all of the air had been sucked out of the entire movie. It was so quiet.
Yeah.
And this is another like another filmmaking thing. When you're making a movie, you want to have dry audio from your actors because you might have to manipulate it or whatever. You don't want extra noise in the scene. But when you are putting the movie together, if it's just, you and me talking in a room or whatever, and just this dry audio and there's nothing else going on, it feels really weird because that's not how real life is. In real life, you hear our voices echoing off the walls, the reverb or whatever. You hear a cat outside meowing. You hear the air conditioner turn on. Like shit happens in real life. And when you're sound designing a movie, you have to build all that stuff into your scene so it doesn't feel unnecessary. And this movie, like 20 minutes into it, I realized that it's dead quiet. The only thing that I'm hearing is Jim Carrey's voice and Jim Carrey's voice,
which makes it off-putting.
Yeah, and it's so uncomfortable. Like it's a subliminal mind fuck to not have any other noises in the room, and not even the score either. Like a lot of this movie is scoreless, which is something like, especially with Fast and Furious, that I push for. I like not having scores in action movies a lot of the time, or even just scores like telling me how to feel about something. But it was sorely missed in this movie where the air had just been sucked out of every scene.
So just looking at it from a podcast perspective, like I do noise reduction to get rid of some of the room tone and everything, but I don't get rid of, it's called reduction, not elimination. Like you don't get rid of all of it. Like you drop it by a certain decibel amount. So like your voice and my voice are the focus.
Yeah.
But I don't remove all room tone. I don't get rid of all gaps in speaking, everything, you keep a little bit of it because it sounds natural. If you get rid of everything, and we don't exist in a vacuum.
Right, exactly. And focus is the best way.
I agree with you.
Focus is the best word that you use there, because you're not, think about it like a camera. Like if you're shooting Jim Carrey talking to these people, you're going to put the two actors in focus, and the stuff in the background might be a little out of focus, or it might just be lit a little bit darker, or whatever. However you choose to do that, the actors are going to be the focus of most of those scenes. If you think about that in a sound context, you're highlighting the voices, us speaking right now, but there's still stuff happening in the background, and our voices aren't perfect. If you applied the same sound design in this movie to the visual design, it would just be Jim Carrey on a green screen
in a white room.
In a white room. I was gonna say on a green screen because this movie is all motion capture, but yeah, it would just be actors on a white background, and that would be incredibly distracting. That's not how real life looks or feels. It'd be really uncomfortable.
Sounds. Like anytime they do something like that in a movie, like the end of Harry Potter or the scenes in the Matrix, like it's always in an unrealistic world, or it's the afterlife, or it's a program.
Exactly.
It's always supposed to be a situation where the character's not in a place that they're used to.
It's made to
and
make
same
you
thing
feel
goes with audio. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm done with it. I got all my notes. I hated it.
Let's see. I was gonna make a joke about Bob Marley, but the movie's like not even worth. Yeah, Jim Carrey being all the ghosts is weird. The second ghost is really off-putting. I think, okay, so the most benefit of the doubt that I'm willing to give this movie is that I think that Robert Zemeckis wanted to create an amusement park ride. And I think that if this was like one of those, did you go on the I don't remember the name of the ride, but it's the one at Harry Potter Land that like everybody sits in there. It's like a 3D ride.
I fucking love that ride.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That's what this movie should have been.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been a theater movie.
That could have been that would be an interesting ride. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that's how this feels. And I think in that sense, it's super cool. And then also the 3D stuff doesn't really bother me as much.
Yeah.
And I think even like the ghosts being extra scary might not have been as big of an issue, because it's I think it's different when you're experiencing it as a 3D roller coaster kind of thing, as opposed to sitting in a theater or trying to have like an experience that you share with your children every Christmas.
Yeah.
So I think if you think about the movie as a roller coaster, then maybe it's a little bit more fun. It doesn't fix it for me, but it makes me understand what I think Zemeckis was trying to do a little bit better.
Yeah. It bums me out. I feel like Zemeckis has been taking some big swings over the last few years, and he just hasn't really had a hit since Polar Express.
We should have just watched Scrooged.
Yeah.
With Bill Murray.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, there's a scene where Ebenezer Scrooge runs down the street, and it's like a dream sequence, and he's like a mouse, I guess. I mean, he's not a mouse, but he's the size of a mouse. He's been shrunk. And a big, like a keg of beer flies towards him, and he manages to like catch it, and he lays on his back, and he like spins it with his feet. Do you remember that?
No.
I hated that. That was so stupid. Yeah. He's like 70
years
old. I
honestly like glazed over and stopped caring about this movie. So like what I ended up doing, I'm looking at my notes. My notes stop at the Ghosts of Christmas Present, and then I literally have Wikipedia copied from for the plot for the rest of the movie until the very end, and I wrote ends with Bob telling us how Scrooge became like a second father.
Yeah,
and that's it.
This I didn't think about it in the Muppet Christmas Carol. I've heard this story every year since I was born, so I understand. I'm familiar with the story. I never really thought about this, but this movie really highlighted how weird and upsetting it would be to wake up one day and Ebenezer Scrooge is just all about Christmas. Like the mental whiplash that would create.
Everybody was like, what the fuck?
I feel like it made me think that in real life, if that happened, he would have to sit down and explain to every single person they talk to, like, listen, I know that I've been an asshole about Christmas the entire time that you've known me, but I had a revelation last night. Now I'm all about it. And then he'd be like, okay, that's weird, but at least I understand what's happening now, and I see that you're aware of it. If that guy just started being like super stoked on Christmas to me all of a sudden, I would think that I need to put him in a home. Like, oh, he's lost his mind.
Like, was it? This one was weird because he like shows up and he's like, "Hey, like you're supposed." Oh no, it was the Michael Caine one. The Michael Caine one that had a little bit of fun with it, where he like shows up to Bob Cratchit's house and he's like, "Why the fuck aren't you at work, Kermit?" And he's like, "Dude, you told me I had the day off." And I'm like, he's like, "I'm Ebenezer fucking Scrooge. Does that sound like me? Get to work."
Yeah, and then Miss Piggy is like,
comes out, she's like, "Get the fuck out of my house!" And then he's like, "I'm giving you a raise. I'm just fucking with you guys." And
this one kind of
I thought that was kind of fun.
This one did that too, but it was in the office. Miss Piggy wasn't there. There's also a scene at the end of this movie where Ebenezer Scrooge grabs onto the back of a buggy, a horse and buggy carriage, and he like rides it through the snow through the city.
Yeah,
and I was like, this septuagenarian is barefoot skitching on the back of a horse and buggy.
Apparently, he didn't realize that. Like, a lot of people thought that was a Back to the Future nod, and he's like, "Nope, didn't even think about it."
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. That's like being, it's like being in a massive rock band and accidentally playing a couple notes from a solo on the song that made you a hit 50 years ago.
Right.
You know, who cares?
Yeah. Whatever. I'm done.
Yeah, man, that wasn't fun. I wouldn't recommend anyone to watch it. I would not show it to my kids. If they were children, like maybe if I had a kid and he went into the business and he was an adult and I was like, "Hey, do you want to see something funny?" Yeah. Let's watch half of this and then not talk about it anymore.
Yeah. All right. Give us your plugs, bud.
I'm on Instagram at Dyslexic, DYSAlexIC. I post lots of stories of my cats there. I'm on Twitter at Polishi. It's just my last name. And if you want to follow along with what I'm watching, I'm on Letterboxd at Polishi as well.
Yep. All right. And you guys can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. And we finally, well, we're not technically done with Fast and the Furious. I saw on your Twitter that you're like, we're finally done, but we're going to be watching Better Luck Tomorrow. So I think that was a little premature.
Do we need to watch that?
No, we don't have to. I'm totally fine not doing it.
Let's see if the viewers want us to watch Better Luck Tomorrow. I might have had all the Fast and Furious sucked out of me.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. But we're going to start doing our bonus episodes on Patreon. So if you guys want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods. And yeah.
I would rather talk about Tenet next week than talk about Better Luck Tomorrow.
Let's do it. That'll be our bonus episode. I'll watch it sometime this weekend. I've got a 4-day weekend.
Cool. And if anybody's upset, we'll watch Better Luck Tomorrow.
We'll get there eventually. Just like Han getting to Tokyo. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah. I'll watch it the next week if someone's upset about it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. And this is our Christmas episode. So for those of you who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. For those who don't, just Happy Holidays. Good for you guys.
Yeah.
Happy Honda Days. Happy Toyota-thon. Whatever you celebrate. Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.